Chapter 21. In front of us was a young girl. She was no older than Fauve, at least by the look of her, though she was underfed to put it mildly. Her clothing was baggy, tattered, and well out of style. I'd seen the clothing choices of some 20th and 21st century humans, and this was straight out of that era, but it was definitely worse for wear. She also wore a yellow coat that was torn in places and had been crudely patched, and on her back was an iron crowbar of considerable size compared to her, along with a small backpack. All of this was unremarkable. What was remarkable brought back to mind my sister's words at the restaurant about how they referred to themselves. Simply put, they were different enough that, yes, I would classify them as a subspecies of humans. It was the rabbit ears on her head that made me say that. She had hair thick with ash, presumably a form of pest control, and on her head, fully functional upright rabbit ears that twitched when she saw us. My mouth gaped and my tongue lolled out of my head. Suddenly my sister's ability to gain their trust began to make a great deal more sense. I wondered, are they all rabbitish? I suspected not, based on what my sister mentioned about gene fusion and her specialized expertise with mutations. I was stopped from taking a step forward when Bao thrust her arms out in front of us all. "Just wait, she'll come to us," she said, and in a very strange sort of way that I could not quite explain. I felt proud of my sister. I'd seen Fauve play with Michael while he was learning to walk, her encouraging words urging him on, and the way she gave little cheers and claps for him when he reached her. Siblings can be proud of their own, in human society at least. In much the same way a person might be proud of their company, or a soldier proud of their unit, a human can be proud of a person other than themselves. The family unit in its healthiest state does not shame pride when it is justified. Rather, they externalize their pride to another member of that unit. A parent proud of their child, a child proud of their parent, a sibling for a sibling. As long as there is an action to be proud of, they do not shy from it. I never had that before. My socialization was limited at best and directly restricted at worst. Looking back on it, academic outliers were treated in the same fashion as military outliers, shunted out of normal society and into a life where connection was either irrelevant or undesirable. Bao worked as a geneticist in a highly competitive field where everybody was a rival. Bonnie read as a scout, a high-casualty profession where they were far, far away from Dlamius or any of its colonies, and I worked with Xeno studies. It would have been very doubtful I would have returned to Dlamius at all except for a mating season here and there. I can only say that when I felt that first rush of pride in my sister for her obvious effort at familiarizing herself with the local culture, I cursed our ancestors. They deprived us of so much, reshaping our society into a joyless place devoid of everything that made a life well lived. I wondered at that moment, while we waited for the young girl to approach us, did our ancestors think they were doing an act of kindness for us? What kind of losses had they suffered that made them want to make sure nobody ever felt a loss again? Were we once more like humans? There was no historian of ours available to ask, and those who were in a position to know were even farther away from my homeworld. So my question went unanswered, and would stay as such for quite some time. For the moment, though, I just waited, following Bao's instructions like everyone else. I wasn't sure how long we were supposed to wait, but I suspect we were waiting a little longer than was customary. Or so I suspected when I saw the way the girl's face was fixated on the drone hovering beside me. I think I should add that while the young human female some 50 paces or more from us did not move for a while, I didn't sense that much in the way of fear. Considering the behemoths walking behind us and what must have been an unfamiliar flying machine, I have to praise her bravery for not running away immediately. Whether she was counting seconds or heartbeats, or by some hidden meaning known only to her, a moment after Bao's arms dropped, the girl approached us with slow but steady steps. When she came close enough that she was just out of arm's reach, she said, "Girl is Usagi of Longstep, born of Chikagawa. Girl is Bao of No House, born of Dlamius." Bao introduced herself, and then the two embraced. Bao, I noticed, paid special attention to stroking the girl's ears and head, while the girl who referred to herself as Usagi did the same with Bao, scratching behind them and stroking Bao's head. I knew the power of the head pat and the ear scratch. It seemed to do wonders in helping us to bond with humans, and it was not dumb luck that this one figured it out. I'm sure of that. Her reaction was far too natural. I was immediately sure that there were more like Usagi ahead. "You have strangers to Usagi. Name their names." Usagi said it wasn't really a request. She showed no sign of moving away. We would not be introduced while we traveled. "Small boy is Bailey of Walker, born of Dlamius. Tall girl is Rebecca of Walker, born of Louisville. Tall girl like me is Bonnie Red of No House, born of Dlamius. Giant boy is Boatswain of No House, born of Dlamius. Other giant boy is Byron of..." She stopped, and Byron answered. House Berlichingen. Of House Berlichingen. Born of... Bao paused again. Strasbourg. He filled in for her. Born of Strasbourg, she said for him. And this girl is Fauve. Bao gestured to the machine. Of House Walker, born of Louisville. Fauve is Machiin? Usagi asked, and Fauve switched on her audio. No, Fauve is not machine. Fauve is using a machine. I couldn't come, so I sent a drone instead so I could be there without being there. Usagi took that in. So you are here, but not here. Fauve is girl ghost? I have heard of Machiinis that took the souls of people, but not seen this thing before. Usagi rubbed her chin and then reached out and poked the glass lens. Please do not touch my lens, Usagi. It will smudge, and then I will be blind, Fauve said patiently, and Usagi yanked her finger back. Injury is never meant. Usagi will apologize. She drooped her ears and bowed her head. But Fauve was quick to speak up. It's fine, don't worry. It isn't an injury and I am not a ghost. Fauve made the drone bob up and down in a way that was almost like a bowing head of her own. Their evident guide seemed to recover almost immediately and went into the matter at hand. Usagi of Longstep is to guide your feet along safe paths. Mind Usagi's words above all. My ears are good, and danger great. Some matcha-ines are still dangerous. Some buildings sometimes fall. I have iota-ine for water. Taste is bad, but better bad taste than painful death. She looked us all up and down again. You bring many things on long steps. Are you strong enough to carry far? Bosane and Byron traded a look at one another, then laughed, but Bonnie Red only cleared her throat and said, Aye, lass, this'll be nothing for the likes of these here louts. Now away with us, aye? Usagi cocked her head and flopped one ear down at the strange way that Bonnie Red spoke, but our resident pirate neither apologized nor explained, and seeming satisfied with silence as an answer, Usagi turned around on her heel. Then we walk. Follow the Usagi until we sleep on safe ground and we have short steps to meet us. She instructed, and just like that, we were off. Chapter 22. Usagi didn't say much along the way, not at first. I did notice that she didn't carry the crowbar in her hands. She just kept it ready. It reminded me vaguely of the way Bonnie kept her sword handy even without any intent to actually use it. My ears flicked about, and I took in the noises that began to creep in as we drew closer to the first set of buildings. I did this because Usagi did this. Her ears were constantly flicking this way and that, though there was no danger to be seen. Bao, Bonnie Red, and Bosun did the same. The air was electric around them all. Boatswain Byron and Bonnie Red were crack professionals, but for Dlamison outliers of their like, particularly for someone like Bonnie Red, adventure was a siren's call. For Rebecca, it might well have been the first true adventure of her life, and I could feel a twinge of nervous anxiety about her that propelled her every step. For Bao, it was a mission of mercy, a thing necessary to solve a problem, and I fear my sister failed to appreciate what was happening. For those who wonder, Bao and I would not dislike each other forever, and to be blunt, when I learned of all her work and preparation, and how she essentially switched professions under the government's nose and did all that she did to come to Earth, well, to use a human parlance, I'll be damned if I didn't think that perhaps my professor did not choose the wrong one. I thought that she should have been in my fur instead of me, but seeing how she was right at this moment, her mind focused on what lay immediately ahead, I understood why I was chosen instead of her. She couldn't see the big picture. It didn't come naturally to her, and she hadn't learned how to force herself to think that way. I could. It was a bit of a confidence boost to realize that. And in that hour, as our ears flicked about and all thought only of either themselves or their immediate wants, I understood the grand significance of what was happening. Most Dlemisons do not travel much. They rarely stray more than a day from their home after they complete their education. Those who do seldom return from where they go, and they go there with purpose and never travel much after that. It is possible for a Dlamisa to grow up, live and die, never having strayed more than 5 hours from their home. Our travels, my sister's, mine, Bonnie Red's, Bosun's. We were making history here on this mission of mercy, not just because we were going where nobody had gone in over 200 years, seeing what had not been seen, meeting those who had not been met, but the very act of what we were doing, traveling without official reason, was almost unthinkable. It's not to say doing so was taboo, but that is as close to what it was as any other word. My report about this would surely travel home, and depending on how things went, if it spread into mass consumption, the first person to do anything has the hardest time doing it. But thereafter? Thereafter it is easier and easier for others to imitate them. Done once, it will be a dozen times more, and from there, who could say what might come of it all? Our insularity was a long-term factor in our security. We kept to our worlds and kept our fleets strong. Death lies readily at hand. Even the word adventure no longer has an equivalent in Encanti. The closest word to it with a human equivalent is danger. Incidentally, I did conduct a search of our language's earlier states. If pronounced so that humans could hear it, the word is erkrabak, which was to sense the new. Another thing lost to us, and to ancient fears of the long dead. For them, the adventure was to sense the new. For Bonnie Red, this was simply her life, as it was. And turning from starship captain to walking on foot, from faster than the speed of light to a common human girl's shamble, the seeking of the new was what she clearly loved. I could see it in her wagging tail. She was having fun. Perhaps it is no surprise that she would be more than just a single starship captain, and be the pirate queen, the mistress of a mighty fleet that would pierce the veil of the untraveled void, so that weaker hearts like mine would feel safer knowing that someone else had gone there first and come back alive. But for me, I won't lie, I was a nervous wreck, but that nervous fear was coupled with something else, something that kept my tail wagging no less than that of Bonnie Red. It wasn't just new ground and adventure, but new history being made with our footsteps marking the ground beneath us. I was off on a grand adventure of my own like no mere academic of our home has done in, I do not even know how long. My sister was elevated more in my eyes, because she dared to do something so profoundly audacious. I can only imagine how it might have gone for her, but those who dare to try always get farther than those who dare nothing and stay home in their unchanging lives, until they managed to forget their dreams until they woke up old and had nothing left but to wait for the eternal sleep. Perhaps it was because of our rising enthusiasm that Usagi felt okay speaking with us. The Wolves are near. I avoided them by coming in the sleep time, but they are awake now and know we are here. Wolves? I asked. I think she means wolves, Rebecca said from behind me. Dog-like creatures that travel in packs. They tend to avoid humans, but they're deadly hunters. Wolves love the taste of long step. They may come for Usagi. They may avoid because I have many steps beside me, and you have a strange smell. No offense is meant, she added, looking behind us and reaching for her crowbar. This disturbed Rebecca to no end, and she approached the rabbity girl and said, Your parents let you come out here alone knowing it's that dangerous? Usagi has no parents. Mother of me died having Usagi. Father of me died when hunting. Maybe wolves. Maybe big cats. Maybe even others of us from other groups. Nobody no knowing. So Usagi has no one. So it is okay if Usagi dies to help what is left. She didn't sound especially sad when she said it. Her manner of speech was still hard to get a handle on, but her tone was like any human, just giving the time of day or talking about the menu items at a coffee shop. But I saw Rebecca's stunned and horrified face. Too, I noticed that Bao immediately clung to the girl and began rubbing her ears. It is not okay with me, Usagi. They should have sent a bigger guide. I would miss you. This response by Bao caught me by surprise. I had assumed that she and Usagi were not acquainted with one another, since they had introduced themselves. I filed it away to ask about later. It somehow didn't feel right to ask it then. Instead, I went the reassuring route. These wolves won't be a problem. Believe me. Byron drew out a very long, very sharp knife with a curve close to the top, and Boswin reached into his vest, and when he drew his hands out, he had the traditional ripper claws of Dlamacin hand-to-hand combat tradition. For good measure, he opened his jaw to reveal the metal-tipped teeth and snapped his jaws shut. Bonnie Red did the same and added, Aye, lass, you got no worries here. You're part of our crew while we travel, and you don't let your crew get swept overboard without throwing them a line. She tipped her tricorner hat for good measure, and Usagi simply nodded. Rebecca remained visibly disturbed by Usagi's seeming indifference to her own possible death, and began to watch over the girl a little more closely. Human motherly instinct is a very strange thing. A motherless, fatherless youngling is frequently adopted by another with the means to care for them, but noticing how underfed Usagi was, and knowing the very briefest version of what Bao had said, the people who lived here had very, very little to spare at all. Rebecca, however, was from a very well-off family. Even if Fauve were not inevitably bound for great wealth, I could see pity warring with common sense in the woman. But that's how humans can be when their hearts are stirred by compassion. Even if you are strong, I would not tempt the wolves. Usagi has a place she hides when on her hunt. Maybe we rest there. Maybe we eat. Maybe we wait for the wolves to pass. Maybe we sleep if they pass slow. Maybe some will be waiting there for us already. Follow Usagi to the little walls beneath stone. She pointed her crowbar in the direction of another small hill. The broken bits of road diverged there. It was much smaller than the road we were on. At a guess, it was a place that fed into the old interstate highway system. If my guess was right, Then there would be a cluster of small buildings there where travelers once had time to get service and rest. It was a fair walk still, but if Usagi felt at all tired, she didn't show it. She never missed a step, nor asked for water, though Rebecca and I both had to pause several times at least. Thankfully, there was no attempt at mocking either of us. I can only assume Bao cautioned them about how some of us might not be used to this kind of thing. If so, I was grateful. Fauve's drone buzzed along and then zipped ahead of us, once or twice going up high only to descend and let us know that the wolves had not come any closer. Usagi grew ever more fascinated with the matcha ein and the voice that spoke through it, as Fauve proved her usefulness in spades. But she did not attempt to pry more, at least not then. We crested the small hill in peace, and found the ruined road did indeed lead to a small cluster of buildings, and Usagi, excellent guide that she was, chose to explain them. The ash station is dangerous. A bad smell will cause the sleep death. Some go to the ash stations when they want no more life, but those places are safe. She pointed to a place where an old sign was broken in half, only the word inn remained. It was a one-story building with a line of doors marking off individual rooms. There is a place beneath. Place is old. Some survivors from the Great Dying hid there. It is how they live. Only Longsteps know that place, but there are others known to others who walked Chicago. Sounds like a bomb shelter. Rebecca remarked, I remember from history class that a bunch of places built those back in the 50s of the 20th century, and then again in the 20s of the 21st century. I guess they saw some use around here eventually. Yes, that is what the old ones called it. Every group has their own, and they are kept secret and special. Sacred places of life where long walkers were born, or red spears, or the black fur, all born from earth when the world died. Usagi said, Come, Usagi offers her home to you. And she said no more until we reached the birthplace of her people. Chapter 23. I know of no words for this place that she led us to except to say that it was impressive in its absurdity. The walls of the inn still stood, dirty and pockmarked as they were, and full of holes large and small, some wrought by time, others, though, gunfire. I had seen Earth films, and knew what it looked like when light shined through a place once whole, where bullets had passed through on their journey to end some unfortunate life. I admit, I didn't know enough of Earth's history during their own minor great calamity of war before unity, but it wasn't hard to conclude that an apex predatory species, running low on resources and necessities, would turn on its own in times of want. They did that well enough in times of plenty. How much more so would that be done in times of desperation? The door we passed through had clearly been very crudely repaired over the years. A tight stretched cloth of fur secured to blanks of wood, which were then pressed against the opening by hooks instead of hinges, provided a convenient and easy rigging. And it did provide some protection to the interior. The interior was no better, being dust and dirt, the faint smell of death where something had perished nearby but well out of view. The front counter was surprisingly intact, but the door to the back office was long since gone. The lobby area had a toppled-over vending machine, the front shattered by force, and the plastic still ripped and torn, stained with blood where somebody had cut themselves trying to get at the snacks within. The chairs were splinters, reduced to bits of wood clinging to the metal parts that once held them together. If anything, I was impressed that there were any bits left at all. It was fairly obvious that Usagi's tribe, her Longsteps, had been reduced to scavenging long ago. An old skeleton lay in the corner, still clad in the tattered remnants of clothing, an etching on the wall carved with a knife still clutched in a skeletal hand. I had enough time to read it as we passed. I cannot get in. They can't hear me in there, or maybe they're ignoring me. I begged them to take Harry at least, but they won't, or can't. Maybe they're all dead too. I drank some water outside when I was thirsty, and gave some to Harry when he started crying. Now I can't stop vomiting and neither can he. What if this is happening everywhere? God help us. God help us all. I don't want to die. I don't want Harry to die. It hurts so much. Why won't anyone come? Usagi paused when I broke from the group to go take a closer look. There was another skeleton close by, against the wall, right by the message. It wasn't hard to figure out what happened. A very small human skull. A hole in it matched the knife. Harry, it seems, had not had to suffer much longer after that message was carved, and based on the size of the black blood stain on the remnants of the tile floor, I suppose that the same was true of the unnamed author. Come, follow, do not touch the dead. Usagi said, They who died before our birth punish those who touch them, giving death to us. It wasn't hard to work out that their ancestors had tried to bury the dead, and gotten sick handling the corpses. Now they would not touch the dead at all. But maybe not for you. Bao says of you that you are not like us. Not born of Earth, but stars. Distant lights we see at night have worlds like this one. Maybe their curse will hurt you not as it does us, Usagi said, but I could hear the disapproving note in her voice, and see the glare in my sister's eye. I withdrew from the corpses. Rebecca, I think, regretted allowing Fauve to follow us by drone, and I saw the way she lingered, hovering close by until her mother called her away. I will always credit Fauve for getting that message of desperation and fear on that wall, recorded forever on digital media. It has been seen millions of times since then, and is one of the few surviving written remnants of those who lived in the immediate days after the last true war on Earth. I would be remiss if I did not say that yes, eventually the pair, a father and son, were given a proper burial. DNA testing showed that they did have living descendants, and they got a space in the family plot. Their own planting was given to them as a final act of reverence. At that moment, however, I had no time to think of such things. Usagi led us into a back area where a heavy box of all things, lead, stood upright like a locker against the wall. It looked rather like a locker, save there were no holes and only a wheel of steel to open it. You strong ones, please pull that open. Usagi is not able, she said, and Rebecca frowned as Byron and Bosun approached to open it. Usagi, where would you have gone if you hadn't been able to stay here tonight where it's supposed to be safe? Rebecca pressed. Usagi pointed to the roof. Maybe there. Wolves cannot climb much. Other things are dangerous too, but they do not trouble wolves. If Usagi does not make it, then Usagi does not live. Then the tribe has one less to feed, more food for the other children, one less worry. I could feel the heartbreak in the room before the pair grunted and pulled open the heavy lead door. But even if Usagi felt it, she didn't bother to speak of it. She entered and crouched down. A ladder was there that I have to admit was impressive. It was made of granite, not metal, to ensure it didn't rust or suffer the way metal might over the course of time. I followed down the hole with some trepidation that was eased when I realized that there was a dim light below. I had to wonder what it might be, but I didn't have to wait long for my answer. Along the wall down below were stone pots holding little plants that were glowing in the dark, an ingenious innovation to provide limitless light with no more energy needed than it took to live. The green and blue plants were seemingly some form of fungoid, like a mushroom, but with fuzzy caps of the sort I'd never seen before. The presence of other small plants suggested that this was intended to be a self-balanced miniature ecosystem. The fact that it was covered with plastic domes on which I could see precipitation forming confirmed this for me. It was brilliant in its simplicity. The underground space seemed to run roughly the length of the inn itself. The beds were metal frames, and the mattresses compressed and dirty, torn in places with springs exposed. A few were well past being usable. There were lockers which I recognized as weapons storage, but the doors were open. The weapons were gone. Similarly, I saw footlockers that lay open or broken into pieces. It wasn't hard to conclude from the scattered wrappers that they'd once held food and various medical supplies. Usagi's belly rumbled audibly, followed by Rebecca's, then mine. We stopped to eat, Usagi said, and from in her pocket she took out a bit of fur which she unfolded. I could see the fat still clinging to the interior, and she began to gnaw on it, chewing with desperation. I wondered when the last time was that she had a real meal. Bosun Byron, you brought MREs, right? Rebecca turned to ask, but she hadn't needed to. They were already sitting down and digging through their rucks. Usagi has nothing to offer, the rabbity girl said when Byron held out the brown package. And I am not strong enough to fight you for it. Do not mock Usagi. Byron shook his head. No one eats unless everyone does. We brought enough and can get more easily. Take it. You would. He closed his eyes and thought about it for a moment. You would honor me if you accept this gift for guiding us to safety. He might have looked like a meathead, but he was a lot smarter than he seemed at first glance. It was the right turn of phrase, and the half-starved girl accepted the brown package and began to tear into it with her teeth. Wolves move sometimes fast and sometimes slow. I will check if they are here when they should be gone. If they remain after we eat, then they will not leave until morning. Usagi says we stay, so we stay if that happens. Then we will go into Chicago, she said, as the plastic ripped open and her hands began to tear at the other smaller containers, imitating as best she could the motions of Byron as he opened his own, while Bosun passed out the rest. That will be fine, Usagi, Bao said, speaking for the rest of us, and we settled in for what I expected would be a lengthy layover.